They try to drown me. I can swim upstream so profoundly. I can stay calm in a dire situation. I'm at it every day, no time for a vacation. And I smell blood in the water. Everything I do, yeah, I do it for my daughters. Now I'm gonna shut your lips. It's time for a brand new episode of what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, say what? We talking jit, said it's time for a brand new episode of Talking Jit.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Talking Jit with Acai. On today's episode, we've got a very intense story, but with a very good message behind it. I have none other than the blog master herself, Tara Jacobsen, and she just so happens to kind of sort of, let's just say future mother-in-law. Can we say that? Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
When everyone's done bugging me about it, maybe it'll happen.
Put a ring on it.
I know. I'm just one of the people that the more I get bugged about it, the more it just goes on the back burner. I'm like, it puts that irritating feeling under my skin. So maybe if I get some silence on that whole subject, it'll happen.
I'm married to that guy too. They do say you marry your father.
So was this about a week ago? You had one of the most, probably top 5 of the worst, scariest moments for probably a parent to have.
Oh, 100%. The most scary moment as a parent. Number 2, most horrible thing in my life after my mom passing away unexpectedly when I was 30. Like that, it was just heart-wrenching and like a bizarre 2 days out of our lives that we're still recovering from. We are having conversations this morning about things between Johnny and I, my husband Johnny and I, and our son, and talking about, you know, who needs counseling for what, when, and all of that. So it was an amazing time. I had such a good time with Josiah. It's so odd. But just to get started, Kevin, I do want everybody to know that my son has said that as a 16-year-old kid, I asked him, do you mind if I share your story? Because I've shared the story of adopting your future wife, her brother and sister from foster care 10 years ago. And I don't talk about my kids very much. I talk a lot about marketing. I talk a lot about Alzheimer's with my mother-in-law who lived with us. But I always ask for consent before I talk about anybody else's story. And Brittany's been very kind to let me talk about some of their situation. And of course, I asked Josiah for consent before talking about his situation online, and he has given it. I won't be talking about the names of any other people in this story. That's not my place to do that.
That's fair. That's very fair. And that's I know you're pretty much an open book, and I was actually going to say, I don't know how much or how deep you're willing to go, but if I do, I know you'll tell me if there's something that you don't really want to disclose or, put out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I pretty much talk. I have a blog, so I talk about everything. In fact, the whole time I was joking with Johnny, I'm like, I'm going to blog about this. And he's like, yeah, I know. And I was just joking. I'm like, no, who would blog about their kid? Oh, before we get any further, I would like to put out a content warning that we're going to be talking about my child being shot. So if that is something that is not good for your psyche, please skip this episode. I'm relatively, everybody says I'm funny. I have no idea why anybody thinks that. It's not going to be a deep, dark episode. It's going to be somewhat, hopefully, uplifting and informational. But if that is something that bothers you, please just avoid it.
Fair enough. Yeah, and your blog was beautiful. I'm going to link it if you're okay with that.
Oh, thank you. Please do.
The exact one that you sent me. And that it was really cool because you pumped it out so quick. But when I told you that, it was like I really enjoyed it, and I also like how at the end you've already said it was about Josiah being shot, but at the end, I like how you weren't very biased, especially with how things are right now. But at the end, you did say like this is not an anti-gun ad. We are gun owners, but like I'm preaching gun safety here,
Oh yeah.
and
I
I
grew
like how
up I grew up in northwestern Pennsylvania. The guys all had guns. We would get like the first day of deer and the first day of buck off every year. And so guns were a part of my growing up. It was in a very different way than it was now. It wasn't like maybe somebody would have a shotgun behind their door. I had a shotgun behind my door when I lived alone by myself up there. But it wasn't politicized. It was just a function of living in the country, right?
right,
And so for me, guns are a functional item for home protection if you're going to go hunting, if you're going to eat what you kill, all that stuff. So I don't have, and you can tell them I'm a crunchy granola. I'm writing a blog post right now about how to use essential oils to make your house smell a certain way. But also, I grew up in the country. I'm aware of guns. We have a gun for protection in our home now. And I think one of the things that's been lost in the current climate of everything being politicized is you can be this and that, right? I can respect guns and not want to have, every kind of gun available to every kind of human with every kind of mental condition or children, right? Available. So that's kind of to get you started on where I stand. You're not going to be hearing me bashing guns and you're not going to be hearing me praising guns. They're just a functional item.
I completely agree. I see it the same way you do. So that's actually how about you just tell me about or tell us about what happened? I mean, I imagine you're probably in bed by now.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I go to bed at
Um,
like 10 and it was like 1:45 and my beagle who is a little bit of a rascal is just barking like crazy. And so I wake up out of a completely dead sleep. I go in our front room, and my middle daughter is there with the beagle going crazy. And I'm like, I'm not awake yet. I can't understand what the situation was. There were no lights on. And so Desi said there was somebody at the door. I opened the door and peeked my head out, and there was a policeman there. And the thing that I remember about him was of course, I'm 5'2". He's taller than everybody's taller than me. But he was standing with his like hands on his vest, trying to look as unthreatening as possible. It was really like that's what I noticed, like an unthreatening police officer. So uh, he said the worst thing I could have ever heard is, "Are you Josiah's mom?"
oh,
And I was like I know this isn't good. So, is it my kid's in trouble? Is this my kid's hurt? Is this my kid's dead? And of course, being me, I went directly to my child's dead. He wasn't. So then he tells me that Josiah's been shot in the foot. That wasn't right. We got misinformation along the way. It's so funny. I watch true crime all the time, and I was watching something going on, and they had all kinds of different stories as they got the body cam footage. And I feel like that's what it would be like if we got our body cam footage. That
mhm.
there was just all different, stories of what was going on. So, anyways, they say, Josiah's in Trinity Hospital. He's been shot, which Trinity is a bedroom community of Tampa. It is a sleepy little town. Not even a town. We don't have a town center, but we do have a couple shopping malls. It's very suburbia, very nice community. I wouldn't say it has high end parts, it has medium end parts. It's just there's no low end, like there's no bad place in Trinity. It's just not that kind of place. And so Johnny drove us to the hospital as we were driving. Desi went and got him as he was driving. I really felt like it was good he was driving because I would have been driving 90 miles an hour and he drove like a normal person. And we got there, we got in to see Josiah. We went past there was a waiting room with kids and parents, and I glanced, didn't even think about it, went in. And I just stood there and looked at him. He was on morphine and they said he's fine, and I can't remember if it was in my head or out loud, but he's not fine. He's not fine. And so we went back and forth with the doctor there, and he you could tell he felt uncomfortable dealing with a gunshot teenager in Trinity, Florida. It's not a trauma hospital. We asked them, we were there quite a while. We were probably there 4 or 5 hours. So Johnny and I wound up asking them all kinds of questions. And they're like, well, when we see people shot, usually they're passed because they were husband and wife, or it was an altercation. There's very rarely, because they're not a trauma, no ambulance would take trauma people there. They would take them to a different hospital. So while that was going on, he must have been my assigned policeman, because he gave me a Rice Krispie bar. He gave me a chair. When I would go and try to listen out in the hallway to see what was going on, he would tell me that he would let me know as soon as anything happened. And eventually we saw a whole host of wonderful police officers. The Pasco County Sheriff's Department is amazing. We had my police officer and then another guy who must have been his partner or the opposite half to go with the other kids. We had the captain for that night. And then we had Detective Weaver, who was boldly masculine in his pink shirt and pink tie. And he told us in no uncertain terms that he had no idea what happened, and we probably would never know what happened, because the first story the kids told was that they were at a bonfire. I knew Josiah was going to be at a bonfire. There was a fight, and Josiah got shot. Well, that wasn't true either. The kids lied. And Detective Weaver gave me the idea that they always lie, right? That's
Who always lies?
the kid, anybody he questions, it sounded like. But the kids, teenagers especially, are always going to lie. And he was just fine with that. So he goes away, leaves, comes back about an hour later. He goes, I know what happened. And I'm like, damn, he's a good detective, right? We were joking with him. But come to find out, the kids had gone, Josiah and his friend had gone to another friend's house, and there was a third. So the friend of the friend, this is the whole thing, right? You know who your kids' friends are, but you don't know who your kids' friends' friends are. And this kid had a gun and was twirling it around on his finger, is the impression I get from the motion that Josiah showed me. And it went off and shot Josiah through the knee. So we saw where it was. He's a lacrosse player. He's been doing really great at lacrosse. And we thought, oh, all of that's gone. It is a miracle. It went between the two bones of his leg, hit a little tiny chip off his tibia, and it caused an excessive amount of damage, right? It's a gunshot wound, but it could have been a million times worse just on the knee part, let alone had he gotten shot 10 inches higher and lost all the blood in his body from an artery, been castrated, shot in the chest and died, right? So like, of all the horrible things that happened, he didn't even wind up with a broken bone from this.
That's wild. I remember when Brittany showed me the picture the next morning, because she said, my dad's not coming today. And I'm like, oh, why? And I thought, my mind didn't go to that space.
Whose would?
Yeah. And then she said, Josiah got shot last night. And it's weird because I halfway believed it, but I kind of didn't. And then she shows me a picture, And from the picture I saw the hole in the knee. And I told her, I was like, damn, that sucks because there's so much stuff in the knee. And me being in like a sport where I see a lot of knee injuries, I know like how many ligaments and all sorts of stuff hold that knee together and keep that joint functioning. But I told her, I'm like, he's lucky because just a few inches up, you get into that like artery land of like your quads. You got like tons of arteries in there that a lot of people die from getting shot in the leg.
Yeah, there's just such big arteries there.
And then I found out later just by looking at another picture, that was the exit wound, right? That's where it went
Yeah, the
in.
bigger wound is at the bottom and the smaller wound is at the top. He was sitting with his knees bent, and the kid was sitting on the couch next to him playing, and it went from his right side to his left side. He's lucky his other leg didn't get shot too.
I'm not gonna hold back. I think that what a freaking idiot. How do you not know that there's like a bullet in the chamber? I mean, if you're twirling around your finger, you should at least like know. I don't know if they know what kind of gun or anything, but I'm guessing it's probably got some sort of easy trigger or like a hair or a lot of guns nowadays have like the safety is the trigger, which I never understood that. But
Yeah, that's no.
it still only takes like 5 pounds of pressure to go off, at the most.
Yeah, I'm mad that my kid got shot in general, right?
Hmm.
That's just a think that's a human reaction. And then I am aware that teenagers' brains are not even close to fully developed. And so then I'm like, okay, where are the parents? And I'm having to constantly be reminded by my family members to let the police take care of it because I think I'm a Nancy Drew detective. And, we found out more about the kid that shot him.
Hmm.
Um, not all of it complimentary about him, but also not, you know, he's a kid. And how many of us have done dumb things as a kid? This was an excessively dumb thing. I would like to see him get, he's not going to get arrested. They've already determined it's an accidental shooting. Did he mean to shoot my kid? No, he did not mean to shoot my kid. That makes it an accidental shooting.
Hmm.
That having been said, I would really like to see some gun safety taught. They're tracing the gun more so than anything else. Like, why is the gun in a possession of a teenager? We don't know how old he is. And so I'm letting Detective Weaver do this at that point, but I keep emailing him. I've talked to him once since then, but I keep emailing him all the details, and I did find out what kind of gun it was. Let's see. Sorry if I make scritchy noises.
Detective Tara's on the case.
I'm on the case, man.
I don't blame
Okay.
you. I would be doing the same exact thing. Like I don't know. I've got like the worker mentality. Like, okay, you can go work, but I'm still digging. Like,
Yeah. Well, and the other half of that is my kid is never going to he doesn't talk hardly at all. And then he's not going to talk to somebody outside the family. He's just not a big talky kid.
Mhm.
And so I can get information out of him that he wouldn't get. And then Johnny was at a place and some of the kids, some of the lacrosse kids knew some more information. But supposedly the gun was a Browning 9. It's not
Okay.
confirmed. So
He-
I
I
don't
mean,
know much about guns.
it's such a weird spot because there's so much to be thankful for, but at the same time, like so much to be, I don't know, resentful for. Because
Exactly.
he's he to get shot and make it out like that is good. Like if you're gonna get shot, you'd probably want something that's not gonna hit anything vital. That's obviously gonna freaking hurt, but you're gonna bounce back. But you don't want to get shot, and
Right?
you don't want to
Right?
get shot because some idiot is an idiot.
Yeah, that is that I have no problem saying that that was a moronic thing to do. That was a stupid thing to do. There were from what I understand there were at least 5 kids in the room. It, it's just not a good situation. And there have been other ramifications that I can't talk about that have affected other of the kids in the room. Because watching somebody get shot is, for at least one of Josiah's friends, I almost feel like is worse than having been the one that got shot. So that's a thing. And then it's hilarious. So there were many funny things to me. Okay. The first funny thing was, instead of, if somebody was in a room with you when they got shot, what would your first response to get help be? 911?
911, and I personally would just try to see where the wound is so I could help keep the person conscious, or I'd want to see this, like, because if it was in a bad spot, you got to like kind of cut off the blood stream, and I would 911 would probably be the very first thing as I'm trying to figure out how I can keep this person breathing or keep
Ex-
pressure on the wound.
Well, they did not. That was not their solution. Their solution was four guys bundled him up into a car, drove past a hospital, and I believe drove to the Trinity Hospital because they were about 20 minutes away.
Hmm.
I believe they came to the Trinity Hospital because my son and one of his friends knew where it was,
Okay.
right? Like, they didn't have to Google it. They knew exactly how to get there. So um, you're probably too young for this, but I called it their Lucy and Ethel moment, where Lucille Ball and her sidekick are hustling them into the car. So that just tells me, A, they're in shock, B, they're children, grown children, bigger children. But the fact that that's their solution just shows how little awareness they had of what it means when somebody gets shot.
Yeah. It's scary to me too, because I mean, I don't know if you know this, but I used to get rowdy back in the days, and when I heard that, and we're slowly getting information, and I'm not the type of person that, like, when something like that goes down, I'm like, man, I'm gonna wait till the dust settles. I don't need to add to the pot and what's going on right now. I'll get information, I'll get it as it comes out, and then I'll talk to the family. That's why I reached out to you guys like a few days after, or
Right,
I
right.
don't know how
I
long. I'm
know
like,
you were chit chatting with Johnny a little bit, so yep.
yeah, but I've been at a lot of I've been in a lot of stupid situations similar. And I've been around a lot of parties with dumb people with guns. It just, when it happened and I heard about it, I'm like, damn, that could have been me so many times. And in your head, that could have been you a lot of times. But since nothing ever happened, you don't ever take it serious. But the fact that it's happened to someone so close, it's like, this shit is real. You know what I mean? It can easily be you that this unfortunate situation happens to. So it kind of gave me this kind of crazy, like, reality feeling. And now I'm thinking about, like, Emery and Sky, and I'm like, man, I hope they don't end up in that position one day. I hope they don't go to stupid parties like I did, thinking like that's normal and it's nothing's they're untouchable.
Well, it's funny because a kid the next week, while Josiah was really in the throes of not being able to walk, got shot and killed in Clearwater. And he goes, "Wow, that never happens up here." I'm like,
Hmm.
"Joe, you got shot." Like, it could have happened, like, even when you're the one that has been shot, you still go, "Oh, well, that wouldn't happen here." And so we had a talk about the luck of the draw, and that could have easily been him, right? So that's how much our brains always think, "Oh, it couldn't have been me." I mean, I was a kid in the 80s, early 90s, and we would go to Nate the drug dealer's house and hang out. And I've thought back, what if it got busted? What if, all those things. It wasn't cool at that time to be waving around guns. So that wasn't a part of the thing, but could I have a drug conviction now, even though I didn't really do drugs? because I didn't like smoking pot, and that's the only thing that was available.
Mhm.
But yeah, we all did stupid things when we were young. It's just my kid happened to get shot while doing them.
How's he doing so far? Like, is he like mentally? I know physically he's probably pretty shot, but man,
Well, it was interesting. So they had him on morphine from the time he went in. And then all through the hospital stay, and then I was very careful with the nurse. We had an amazing nurse, Lori, at Tampa General, and I saw that there was Percocet there, and we've adopted them from foster care. His birth mother was an addict, and his father was an addict also. And so I saw Percocet and went, no, thank goodness it wasn't Oxy. But I'm not going to add insult to injury by having my kid get hooked on painkillers at 16. So we are using a combination of he has to take aspirin as blood thinner, acetaminophen, and ibuprofen, which in the first day was a lot, right? Like we were doing the 6 hours, 6 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours, blah 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 blah. And the only time that he was, and Desi was there too, my middle daughter, the one time he got up and he started walking and he literally burst into tears. And my kid is not a crier. And he plays lacrosse. They hit him as hard as they can with their sticks the whole way down the field, right? This
mhm.
is not a kid that's like not used to getting hurt. And so that was heart wrenching. But honestly, that was the worst. Since then, he's gotten much better. I would say within a few days, 3 days maybe, there was really no pain on his part. He can't stand on it because he has a hairline where the chip was. There's a little crack that they're worried could expand, but
Mhm.
he's not in pain
Wow.
to be 16 again.
Right? If there's
Yeah,
a
I
time,
slept wrong and my top of my finger hurts today.
yeah, you wake up and you slept wrong in your neck. You got a migraine.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's doing great. He's getting around on the crutches well. He's going back to school tomorrow. Um, and then he'll after that we're going to make a go no go decision. He's probably going to be at lacrosse practice. There's another guy there that had blew out his knee, and so the guys go and support the other guys, and hopefully he'll be able to play some this season.
Oh, see, that was another thing I brought up to Brittany was that like the drug part because and I said, "What are they do you know what they're prescribing him or do you know if he's taking it?" And then I even said to her, I said, "Do you have any worries that like he might get addicted to painkillers?" Because I personally lost two of my best friends to that exact same situation where they were one was skateboarding, got hit by an old lady. They prescribed him well it went up. I think it was Percocet, and then they moved him up to Oxys and Roxys, and then he got addicted and he ended up getting super depressed and killing himself. And then I had no
Oh, I'm so sorry.
oh no, it I mean it's been a long time, but I it's a sensitive spot for me because I've seen it happen to two people I feel like it should not have happened to. And then my other buddy OD'd because he got addicted. Um and that's a really scary thing. I got kudos for you guys because I'm sure you get woke up in the middle of the night, you're hit with this haymaker, you're running to the hospital and running all over the place trying to get whatever information you can, and you're probably not sleeping for a few days, but you're still handling everything really logically and really like really thinking about your guys' next steps and next moves. Like even to where you saw Percocet and you're like, no, I'm not gonna add insult to injury. A lot of people would be like, yeah, give him Percocet. Let's get him out of the situation right now, you know? And I'm glad you did that and not even taking the risk for him, you know?
Yeah. Johnny and I were laughing on the way home from with him in the car on the way home. And I think it's because we grew up latchkey kids with a lot of trauma ourselves, that
Mhm.
we're like, okay, we know the situation. It'll be fine. Um, yeah, so that is there's a couple things that really come to mind for me that I would like to mention, especially if you have more of a local audience. I watched the What About Maya trial, or
Okay.
no, Take Care of Maya trial, and there's All Children's Hospital in St. Pete has a propensity for taking children away. There's been numerous St. Pete Times, when it was the St. Pete Times, articles. And so thank God I knew about that. They wanted to send him there. And Johnny fought, thank goodness, to get him to go to Tampa General, where I had to talk to a, um, Child Protective Services person, because my 16-year-old was shot in the middle of the night. I feel like, yeah, get some eyes on this and see what is the circumstances of this happening. Is he generally in danger? All that kind of thing. And so I talked to her, she talked to the detective, and then she talked to Josiah alone. And, with the information that she had, was able to say, okay, this kid's in a safe environment. Stupid kid stuff. But if you went to a hospital that swung the other way to, let's take kids away and find things out later, could you imagine my former foster child, at this point in time, getting taken away from the family that loves him, right?
Yeah, that would suck.
Yeah, so that was terrifying. That might have been scarier for me than anything else, just knowing that, you know, Brittany and Desi and Josiah came from a foster care situation. And you can say a couple days away from your family doesn't do anything, but I can tell you it does. And especially at a time in your life when you're hurt, right? So that worked out well. She cleared us immediately. She was aware that it wasn't our gun. It wasn't anything besides stupid kids stuff. And so I was like, I'm vindicated. This is the right place to go. Um, and so that was really good. And then honestly, we uh we spent Sunday morning trying to get him. Johnny had gone home with Desi so she could work, and Josiah and I spent Sunday morning trying to figure out how to get him out, right? Like, you have to see the physical therapist, you have to do this, and then they said that he could leave. And then, of course, from noon till like 4:30, we just sat there sharing my phone because his phone was lost in the fray. And we had a lovely we chatted and we joked, and I got 4 hours with my 16-year-old son. That was amazing. It was really nice.
That is awesome. Is what else are they looking for? I mean, they're just looking for the gun to make sure it's not stolen, or trying to figure out how he got it.
Yeah, they haven't been able to get in contact with the shooter.
Uh,
And I think at this point that may be deliberate on his part.
like he ran.
And so we've been telling Josiah to tell the friend, right? We're in some kind of bizarre telephone game, but he's not in trouble for an accidental shooting. He's going to get in more trouble for not being able to be interviewed, because the detective can't close the case until they find out about the gun.
Gotcha. Have they found the parents or anything, or like, did everyone pack up and leave? Are you allowed to say that?
Uh, it had nothing to do with the kids' house where they were, which
Hmm.
was something that we had heard at some point. And I don't know if they've gotten the parents. I gave him some good I gave Detective Weaver some good intel yesterday, I think. Um so hopefully they'll be able to find him. But these kids all use Snapchat,
Oh yeah.
which isn't connected to it's hard. And so he said that as a police officer, he can, um, ask for the information from Snapchat. It takes a couple of weeks. So that's kind of where we're at now. And then I'm just giving him any information that I get, or Johnny talked to some of the lacrosse players, got a little bit more information. So anything that we can find out, I am making sure to ferry into him to try to give Detective Weaver as much information as we can get.
How's the whole family taking it? Like between you, John, and Desi, is it like, are you guys all handling it different ways? Are you guys getting close? Do you think it in a way brings you guys closer together?
No, I would say the stress is really the stress and how we handle things. In fact, I was talking to Johnny today, and he and I are, if you have a continuum of 1 to 10, I handle things one way and he handles things the other way. So he's terrified about the overall, how did my kid get in a room with a gun in the middle of the night without me knowing where he, exactly where he was. And I'm at the other end going, he's a 16 and a half-year-old kid. This is, if you take away the gun, this is minor pants compared to some of the situations I got in when I was a kid, right? So there's, I think, and Johnny and I talked, there's somewhere in the middle, right? There's somewhere in the middle where I have less mom guilt about this thing and he has less dad guilt about that thing, and we really know what's going on. But as a parent, there's no way to understand this. Like I still can't understand it, and I don't know how my kid got into that situation, and then here comes my big public service thing. If Please tell any teenager please tell it. And a lot of my girlfriends online have said, I'm going to tell my 9-year-old, I'm going to tell, if you're in a room with a gun, leave. Like, I never told my son that. I know that. It didn't even come to mind. I never thought of it. But if you're in a room with a gun, leave. Just go outside, and drywall will not stop a bullet. So go outside, go down the hallway, go, leave, call your dad, call your mom, call your friend, your sister, call an Uber, call the cops to take you home. They will take you home. He did not know that. I have no frame of reference for, you don't know that a kid playing around with a gun isn't a reason to leave, which I'm sure it's some peer pressure. It's some not knowing what a gun can do because he's been to the range once, but he hasn't really been around guns. It's just astounding to me that you wouldn't leave that situation. But I'm the type of personality that would tell the kid, put that shit down, stop it, leave,
Yeah.
but that's not my kid.
I'll give you a good example of I don't know, one of many nights, but like, so I also like guns. I respect them. I think that you need to know how to like literally operate it and safely. And I had a buddy one night. I I was building an AR-15 from like doing my own build, not buying it from the store, just like part by part, putting it together. And there's a point in the build where you have to, it's difficult. Like you got to get the trigger in, you got to get the springs in right, you got to punch pins in. So there's like a specific tool that makes it easy. So I went over to my buddy's house and brought this stuff over, completely legal, at least here in Florida. And he was helping me put the gun together. And that was the last part of my build until my gun was like, my AR was going to work. So I was kind of excited to get the build done and get it all together. Well, I'm out in his garage messing with my gun for about an hour, trying to figure it out. And he's like in and out, not really paying attention. Come to find out, this friend of mine was doing drugs and getting drunk while I was outside in the garage. Again, like I didn't really know. He comes in at one moment, once we get the thing complete, helps me get all together, and he puts bottom half of the gun to the top of the half of the gun. And, you know, you got an upper and a lower when you have an AR-15. Then he slams a magazine in the AR and he cocks it back. And I looked at him, I said, that magazine is loaded. You just grabbed one of your loaded magazines. And he's like, no, it's not. So I am now in a garage with a guy with my AR-15 that's had my hands all over it, who just put one in the chamber, and he's on drugs and he's all messed up, and he's swinging the gun around with his finger on the trigger, not even responsibly putting the finger above or off the trigger. It's literally on the trigger, and I know this gun is loaded. And he's arguing with me that it's not and trying to pull this stupid drunk move where he's like pointing it at shit. And I remember like that the thought went through my head like this is one of the moments that like this is one of the situations that people get hurt in. Like this is it. And I remember thinking in my head like I need to get the gun from him without provoking him, and then I need to get the fuck out of here. And it's kind of hard to do that with someone who's on drugs and irrational, you know?
Well,
Luckily,
so just as a question, because I don't understand how my son got in that situation.
Mhm.
Was at any point in time your thought process to duck and run?
Well, my thought process was I wanted to I was going to leave. Like my thought process was get the gun and go, but he's waving it around. I'm kind of thinking he's either going to hurt me, hurt somebody, or if I duck and run, like you said earlier, drywall doesn't stop a bullet. So if I start running and he's swinging that thing around, I mean, I'm just kind of like I'm going to get shot anyway. So part of me is like, get the gun away from him, cool him down, distract him, whatever I got to do. I mean, it was one of them things that like all of a sudden I'm in this situation. You know, I wasn't planning on it. I was just all of a sudden in it. And we were kind of close to each other. And I think I might have even said to him, like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave. Give me my shit back. I'm going to leave. But it just got intense really quick. And I could just see how close it was. And ironically, I got it back. I took the mag out. I pulled the I got the bullet out of the chamber. I discharged the bullet out of the chamber, and I said there was one in the chamber. You fucking idiot! I told you there's one in the chamber, and you're waving around like a dumbass. I grabbed my stuff. I got my car and I left. And ironically, later that night, he had a 22, and I guess from what I heard, he was shot it through a wall, and he shot like 3 rounds into his pool. So I never talked to him again. I didn't go over to his house again. I was done with him at that point. But you know, this was a friend of mine that I thought was a responsible person, and he had all the tools to build these things. And I was like, you know, hey, can I come use your tools, hang out for a little bit? Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, dude, I don't know if you just randomly got on drugs recently or you're just an idiot, but like you're gonna kill somebody and just done with it. Um
Yeah,
so I
they're not a toy. That's the thing. I like going to a shooting range. I like being able to shoot a gun. I've shot guns in my life. I've gone to quarries where you set up things at the end of the quarry and you shoot at them. It's fun, right? But that's responsibly, and that's knowing where you are and where everybody else is and what's happening.
right.
The the weird thing to me, I don't have a way in my mind to have a gun and play around with it in a bedroom. So think about a teenager's bedroom. A big one maybe 8 by 10, right? I didn't see the room, but I'm picturing an 8 by 10 room with a bed and five kids in it. Four big teenage boys and one of the girlfriends. How do you have a gun in that size room and play around with it?
He probably thought cool. I mean, he probably thought he was showing off and being cool and like, look, I have a gun. And that's what my thoughts are.
Yeah, I've never been Johnny tells me all the time. I've never been a teenage boy, so I can't understand things. And I have to say that having never been a teenage boy, I do not understand that.
I'd be more than willing. to bet that it was just like, hey, we've got girls around here, we've got guys around here. Check this out. I have a gun. And, I'm underage. I'm 18. I shouldn't have a pistol. And look at me. I got my hands on one. That's where my brain and my guess would go.
Yeah. That's just, to me, I just have no idea.
Hopefully that kid learns a good lesson. I'm sure that kid's been shitting bricks since that's happened. And he's probably really, really looked deep into his life and kind of a devil's advocate kind of outlook. Um, if if he was like looking from his eyes, that was very stupid. Someone did get very hurt, but it could have been a lot worse. He's lucky he didn't kill anybody, and that's not on his conscience. But he's also lucky that hopefully he can learn a lesson from it. You know what I mean? Like I don't.
Yeah,
It's kind
that would be my mom's curse on him.
of
That
like
that he thinks about it a lot.
maybe that kid doesn't go around guns anymore. It would suck if that guy had to do life in prison or something happened over like a mistake like that he would have never done had he known what could have happened, what will happen, and what you know the consequences are. It could have been he could have lost a lot of years of his life, but he could also taken a lot of years of somebody's life. So it's very
Yeah,
tough.
in that case, it probably would have been manslaughter because it's an accident, but there's a big difference between accidentally shooting somebody and accidentally killing somebody. And it was fate that kept him from accidentally killing my son. He lucked out too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's only a matter of time. I do think, and I was telling Brittany this, like it's a matter of time before that especially in high school, before the word spreads, before the truth comes out, and before everything, like, because we were talking, and I'm like, well, do they know who did it? I'm like, that's almost impossible. Like, if there's a lot of kids at the house, then you got a lot of kids to give up a name. Like, you're gonna have people who aren't close with them, people that don't care, people who do care about them, but someone will talk. If
Right.
there's not a lot of kids at the house, well, then you got a lot less links to link to who this kid was. It's like, well, there's five of you. Someone had to know him. And you know what I mean? Like you only got a few people to find out the missing links. But I kept telling her, I'm like, dude, this is a high school. Like word's gonna get out. Kids are gonna talk about, damn, did you hear about Josiah? Did you hear about Josiah? Did you hear about this? And someone's gonna spill the information's gonna come out. And the fact that he's not poking out and he's not answering, I wonder if he's just like scared shitless, if they're lawyering up or what they're doing. But I mean, eventually, I think it sounds like it'll all work out. You've got all the right steps in place, in my opinion, outside point of view.
Yeah, I think it'll be fine. And it, they are, we're getting the most information from the kids who aren't there, who weren't there, but heard about it. Right. So that's why, the gun isn't confirmed, but this was from a kid who knew about the gun before the party. It wasn't even a party. It was an after gathering, right? It wasn't an official thing. It was some guys going to hang out, and one of the kids had a 12 o'clock curfew. So they went to somebody's house. He wasn't allowed to be at the bonfire after 12.
Were there
So
were there parents in the house?
I believe there was. I don't know if there were parents in the house at the time. Um, I did hear about the dad being interviewed. So, um, and Detective Weaver said it had nothing to do with that dad. It had nothing to do, like, again, he's another person that's being affected by this. He did nothing wrong. Some teenagers came over to his son's room after a bonfire, and now he's involved with the police,
Yeah.
right? And so the ramifications of this are are big. Somebody got shot. It's not a funny situation. It's not cool. It's not, you know, Josiah likes the more urban, music and likes the thinking he's living in, hip hop land and all that. I'm hoping, and Johnny's hoping, that at some point he realizes that guns and gangs and drugs, he doesn't do any kind of drugs, but that none of that is cool, right? But
It's
when you're a teenage boy, that stuff when you're a teenage boy living in suburbia, that stuff all seems way more exciting than whatever's going on here. So,
yeah. I've been around a lot of that stuff, and there's that's one thing. There's very harsh lessons to learn from that shit. I mean, I do like my hip hop music, I really do, but there's a difference between listening to it, and getting out of it what you get out of, and trying to imitate it and think that you're a part of it.
yeah.
And actually, have you heard a little bit off subject, but the conspiracy theory of a lot of the hip hop labels own prisons.
Oh, really?
A lot of what's his name? Uh, Q. Why can't I think? From NWA, Ice Cube. Ice Cube. He's been coming out and talking about how a lot of the labels promote these lyrics and this music to even people who haven't lived that life, and the labels also own prisons. So
Well, you know me as a tree hugger. I don't like a profit prison system. So,
yeah, so take that into consideration, kids. The people pumping out the music telling you to break the law are also making profit off of you breaking the law.
yeah.
So don't do it. There's nothing wrong with being great in other aspects of your life and not making stupid mistakes that cost you your life. And it will happen. You're not invincible. You are not invincible. Um, do you think, do you forgive the kid, or could you ever, like, you know, what are your feelings towards the kid?
Um, so my feelings are twofold. Number one, my first feeling is that his brain isn't fully developed, and he I don't think that you can blame people for things they maybe not that kumbaya, but I totally understand that his brain isn't fully formed and that he did not make a decision to play with a gun to shoot my son. An accident is an accident. And the other half of me is pissed because, from what I understand, he thought he was badass because he had a gun, right? Like a gun made him
Cool.
cool and hip and whatever the kids are calling it now, which I'm sure is not cool and hip. Um, so that part of me is like searching tax records and threatening to do, you know, surveillance until I can find him, which your future father-in-law convinced me not to do. So I'm not in some kind of Zen Buddha place about it. I'm pissed if some little jackass thought he was cool having a gun and shot my kid, but two things can be true at once: that he's a jackass and didn't think through the ramifications of having a gun.
Yeah, this is it's funny how you guys operate, especially when you're like texting me saying one parent's like, he's not going out till he's 35, and the other parent's like, I'm gonna make sure he's responsible. Like you guys are a
Yeah.
balancing act. It's good. It's
Yeah,
good.
Johnny and I are on the opposite ends of every continuum. And no, he's not going out till he's 35. I'm not getting woken up again in the middle of the night. I need my sleep.
So you were the person that said not till 35. I couldn't remember which one of you guys was on that side.
Yep, that's me.
Well, I think Josiah will learn a lot. I think he'll be a lot more cautious when he bounces back. Maybe he'll put his full mind towards sports. I mean, he almost lost lacrosse, which he loves very much. Maybe he'll come at it with the angle of, this means a lot to me and I almost lost it, and I'm going to take advantage of every day I still have it.
Well, I think he was kind of focusing on that. The thing that I would like to see is, and I don't know if you can make a kid or help a kid be this, but I firmly believe that was a total follower circumstance. Like he didn't go out that night. He didn't go over to his friend's house to A, go to a bonfire, B, go to a after place, C, be in a room with a gun. You know, that definitely happened to him rather than him controlling what happened to him. So my biggest wish, I guess, is that he take more control over the circumstances he's in and be more of a I don't want him to be a leader either. But just to be more aware of, like how to say no, how to get out of situations that aren't good and be a little bit less, because he's not a reckless kid. That's the thing. He won't ride that giant thing that me and Brittany and Desi go up on that drops you down 200 feet because he doesn't want to get hurt and die. So he's not a reckless kid. He's not a thrill seeker. He's none of those things. And yet he still got shot.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Well, what's the positive message here?
I have a pretty big network. I communicate regularly with a fairly large email list. I'm on a podcast. I've written a blog post. And I feel like if I can get the message out to enough people to leave, one less kid will get shot.
Yeah, that's even one person's worth it.
Exactly. That's just, I have a general public persona to begin with, and I don't have, boundaries with my blog. So of course I wrote a blog about that. And the other half of it is that knowing from writing all those posts about Grandma Linda with Alzheimer's and how to help with that I will get messages from people who needed to know what to do when their kid got shot, right? It's not going to help moms whose kids got killed, because that's an entirely different God forbid circumstance. But I do know that there will be moms that look on the internet, what am I supposed to think when my kid got shot? And that will be helpful.
Well, it's awesome. I'm glad you turn it into such a positive thing. I can hear Emmy's up running around. That's good. Usually you bring her back to me all juiced up, but I think because she's got the flu, I think she's actually relatively chilling. Well, is there anything else you want to get into or anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's great. I've enjoyed getting to talk about it. I wrote about it. That's the funny thing, is people always wonder, like, I do get some comments on my Alzheimer's posts like, why are you writing about this? Well, first off, before my mother-in-law got very ill, I asked her if I had her permission to write about it to help other people, and she said yes. I think they all just say yes because then I'll stop talking to them, uh, without without knowing what the consequences will be. Please just stop talking about blogging to me. But the difference in me and lots of people is that's how I cope with stress, is writing. So it's not to get attention. It's not to do anything like that. It's that if I don't write it down and get it out of my head onto my blog, then it stays in my head. And that's it's just a release for me. It's a way I process trauma. So I know people will say, well, why would you write about this? Well, most people don't write about it. So if there's a mom sitting there who needs some practical information about what you do when your kid gets shot, then she'll have some information.
Yeah. And I really like how you did that. You said like when you had the blah, blah, blah. you had the post out super quick, and I was like, damn, she got it out quick. And I read it. Of course, I wanted as much information as I could get. And I messaged you and said I enjoyed the blog post, and you were like, I had to get it out of my head or else it would bug me forever. And I'm like, that's awesome. That like it's one, an outlet, two, it can help people, and three, like, yeah, I mean, it's a this is what you do. I mean, you know what I mean? So why not?
Right. Well, and the other thing that it's been amazing for is making sure that correct information is there. Like Johnny posted it, I posted it, he posted it to the lacrosse parents site. And so instead of having as many different stories and rumors and things like that about it, it's only from my point of view. It's not from Josiah's point of view, it's not from my husband's point of view, it's from my point of view. But at least the details of what transpired that night are there. And so everybody's starting, I don't know about before I got to him, but after I got to him, that's exactly what happened, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you for doing this.
absolutely. Oh, well,
Appreciate
I
it.
love chit-chatting with you.
Of course. Of course. Sorry I didn't make it this weekend. I
Oh, no bother. I heard you had to fix the bathroom.
still doing it. Lowe's has gotten expensive, by the way. I know that's way off subject, but I just got to get it out. That was pissing me off.
What kind expensive?
Lowe's, man.
Oh,
Lowe's.
Lowe's?
Yeah. I kept walking
Yeah.
over there to get pieces, and I'm like, all right, it's like a $6 bucket of mud. Nope, $12. Oh, this is a $12, spray, orange peel spray. Nope, $25. I'm like,
Oh my
geez.
goodness. Yeah, that's because of late stage capitalism. Don't get me and your mother going on this.
Yeah, we're gonna cut it off there. That could be a whole nother episode.
Well,
Well,
it was lovely talking to you, and thank you
lovely
for
talking to you.
inviting me to come on your show.
Thanks for coming.
All right.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
I think the podcast is fucking sick. If you're listening to it and you're like, I don't know if I want to listen to the next episode of this podcast, you're probably a bitch ass. You need to listen to the next episode of this podcast and keep listening to it. Because my friends down here are trying to make shit happen. And we're going to make some shit happen.